Sabrina the Animated Series, Episode 49. The story starts out boring with people I don't know bitching until Harvey somehow makes an arcade machine act in an unrealistic way. Just because he's good at arcade games. Someone gives him his own arcade game for a week because it's a prototype of the latest game. Since when are beta testers for arcade games hired randomly from arcades? He sneezes from allergies, and Sabrina uncharacteristically says Mr. Mucus is grossing her out, instead of showing compassion. I guess she doesn't want to get him suspicious by zapping away his cold. He gets a VR helmet put on him and raves about it. He lets Sabrina hold his hand, and Salem somehow thinks he can get away with using gibberish in Scrabble. And somehow quickly just saying that turns his head into a donkey head, despite him being mortal. And it happens to Chloe. Babies say gibberish all the time, so wouldn't a baby inevitably say this magic word by accident? No wonder magic words don't make any sense. We know about witches by now. If Chloe hates coming over here, why does she keep going if not specifically to see magic some more? What's so great about this place that it would possibly make up for all the magic? Sabrina gets worried and warps her and Chloe to Harvey's basement to see if he's okay. His front door was left open, begging a burglar to come in. His so-called friends try pulling him away from the arcade machine, and he somehow doesn't take off the helmet, pausing the game, and tell them off. They find out that somehow the machine's got no plug or off switch, which has to be because the maker of the arcade machine is a witch. This isn't the future where they can just wirelessly transmit electricity. The maker of it laughs unrealistically evilly. Then the sage from earlier gets called by Sabrina and calls her cutie pie as she's smiling. She asks him how he already knew her problem, and he doesn't explain it when it'd be easy to explain that he saw it in a crystal ball. But what would even motivate him to spy on her family? It can't be that he wishes she was his daughter, because you'd think he would have zapped up a fake Sabrina to be his daughter. She wouldn't have needed him to tell her to go inside the game. Why does Chloe think she might not be able to go out? She then says she's going with her, even though she'd clearly need her to get her out if she got trapped in it. At least they enjoy high-fiving each other. Why did she call her clothing retro? I love their outfits, but their outfits don't seem totally ancient Roman. And there's no way they'd see someone who looks like Zelda. She says that for no reason, all the people in this game look like the people they know, as that's the nature of the game. The episode gets boring with nothing happening for a while. Why didn't she instantly tell them the goal of the game? She says they need to get somewhere and gives Sabrina a sword. Why not give her a blunt weapon that she'd actually be allowed to hit someone with accurately in a kids' show? She's given a backpack. And they start taking a walk. Why don't they fly? Sabrina would summon brooms that fly to end the story faster. Why are they wasting time letting Salem talk to them? Sabrina could use her witch powers to get past him without trying to answer his riddles. She'd know how unlikely it is that kids would be able to answer riddles correctly. Chloe did some reading off screen, so she answers his riddle, but she got it wrong anyway, so what a waste of time. And a monster shows up. Sabrina says she'll zap it, so predictably, her power doesn't work because total bullshit. This is like the same bullshit plot hole that was forced into a 90s Sabrina comic where the same plot happened. The plants around them shapeshift into women that run away screaming, even though if they're so magical they would just kill it with magic. And they wouldn't waste time returning to normal and endangering themselves for a few seconds then. Sabrina and Chloe are chased up a tree. I always feel like it's so convenient that someone can climb up a tree, especially really quickly. Sabrina remembers Zelda telling her to use the magic book. Somehow she's dumb enough to drop it, but that's good because it crushes his head. Sabrina could have done that too, and it would have been more in character for her because it was a stupid thing. Why does the evil Sphinx give them rewards if he was just giving them a hard time for their method of success? As soon as the shield starts singing badly, I skip ahead to see them slide down. If the story wants me to take its characters seriously enough to call them by their actual names, it shouldn't have made them look like the pre-existing characters for no reason. It must have been just to give the artist an excuse to be lazy. I guess Sabrina's just bluffing when she threatens someone with a sword. a bunch of things get shapeshifted. The shield gets used as a mirror to distract Hilda, but they're just hiding behind it without knowing that she'd be distracted. When it would have been cool if they did this on purpose, because she was clearly vain. Chloe grabs her from behind, and conveniently they get given gifts, instead of her still being mad at them. I guess they assume the beauty aids will be useful later. It's so annoying that they see Harvey and he says he's not Harvey. And even at this point, Sabrina somehow thinks this is the real Harvey after this. When there's no reason they couldn't be a character based off Harvey in the game too. There's no reason the actual Harvey would lie about what his name is to her. Eventually there's awful singing again, and Sabrina sees a Minotaur who doesn't want to eat them even though he's starving, and he didn't tell Chloe she was wrong to assume that he tends to eat people. Huh? Sabrina brought tape or something with her to get around the maze. Chloe lampshades the annoying singing. Then why put it in the episode? At least Sonic Underground had an in-universe justification for all of the singing. Quigley gives them gifts and wastes more time of ours badly singing gibberish. Why did he go back into the maze if he was lost? Why did he get lost instantly? This show isn't funny. If the writers really think of him as this stupid, why do they keep using him as someone who's portrayed as right for hating magic? Eventually, after padding, they find something and see Harvey got captured and duct taped by a character based on the guy who rented Harvey the arcade game. Or maybe he's the real person. They should have known he wouldn't regret that his game is addictive. It turns out he really is that guy. He made the game addictive on purpose to make money. Sabrina somehow thinks the cops and so on would ban a video game for being addictive. This writer never played a video game. Sabrina used the sword to effortlessly cut Harvey's handcuff, which I assume makes sense because it's VR, so it can be as sharp as possible. Chloe says he still has allergies, so Sabrina gets the idea to use the beauty aids from earlier to threaten the slowly moving army that would have heard her when she was talking about her plan, and run away from her screaming. Instead, they prepare to sneeze, even though they don't have the actual body from the real world that would be allergic to something. And Sabrina hides in a bank that she wouldn't fit in, but it's magical because it's VR. If this guy didn't program the game, then he could have still told the person who programmed the game for him to make his avatar not have allergies. There's beauty aids in the game itself that he's allergic to, so he should have thought of this. Somehow a bunch of them sneezing frees them from the game. You know, they could have just pressed the button to escape. And the game is definitely witchcraft because Harvey's character avatar walks out of the game and then Sabrina and Chloe are still dressed like they were before until the clothes get returned to normal with magical light. I better not be expected to believe Mr. M is mortal. That'd be stupid. But if he's a witch, he sure is gutsy to casually reveal witchcraft when he didn't know Sabrina was a witch. Harvey feels dizzy and goes upstairs, and the bad guy sneezes in the backpack without leaving it for no reason. This episode has Harvey get addicted to an arcade machine he was somehow rented in an arcade, and it's a VR game, and somehow, even though he'd feel Sabrina pulling him, he doesn't immediately take off the helmet and end the story. There's no explanation for Sabrina's magic not working. I like that she takes advantage of the bad guy's allergy as a Chekhov's gun. But I don't understand why its clone sneezing would send her and Harvey out of the game. It would have been cooler to have Sabrina have a blunt weapon she'd actually be allowed to attack people with, and so she'd fight off the bad guy herself. I hate when these so-called cool main characters do nothing but succeed by accident. It's clear that the episode's a message against video game addiction, even though it does it in a weird way that won't help anyone. Because in real life, it's up to the person playing the game to decide to stop, and Sabrina pulling on Harvey would get him to quit the game, at least for a minute, and she would be able to unplug the machine. And I don't know if it's realistic for there to be a VR arcade machine from all the way back in the 2000s, like it's nothing. Somehow Harvey's dad and Sabrina didn't instantly freak out, realizing there was witchcraft afoot from the machine running on nothing. So I hate that it's not confirmed the bad guy's a warlock. Showing off video game addiction would work better with a World of Warcraft game because that actually caused addiction. Not an arcade machine where it comes off like Harvey would have no reason to play it so often because Sabrina only has to do a few things in it to beat the game. And there's no indication that you can do stuff to get extra points for a high score. In real life, the way to get someone off their game isn't to just start playing the game and confront them in it. So what is the story's point? I think I hate this episode because it's mostly frustrating and boring. I hate that Sabrina can't use magic in the game. If she did get to use magic, it would have been a lot more interesting if she was constantly using it. But again, at least her not being able to use magic keeps me from wondering why she doesn't use it to instantly end the story. It sucks because it's always obvious that the plot should have ended much earlier. It at least didn't get a chance to demonize magic, but only if you didn't think witchcraft was involved in the game existing. And I think it was, but at least it didn't demonize Sabrina's magic. This story doesn't belong in the show if it can't let Sabrina use magic during any of it. I figured that the episode title would lead to disappointment. Of course it didn't lead to us seeing Sabrina beat things up a bunch, like creatures looking like Gem. This is a show that keeps having the slapstick be off screen. Sabrina the Animated Series, Episode 50. Sabrina's aunts ditch her to go shopping. I assume she thinks they'll abuse magic on her if she doesn't keep going with them to be their bag slave. And they're always surrounded by mortals, so they don't want to warp the bags home in front of them. Sabrina would rather see cafes and discos, but isn't allowed to because she's a kid. It's cathartic that she lampshades that her time is being wasted going to stupid towers. Her aunts leave their bags with her and somehow don't tell her to zap them home. She wants to use magic, and uncharacteristically, Salem reminds her that there was a no magic rule as if he cares, when he always wants her to break said rule. But all she has to do is bribe him with sardines to get him to agree to bring her the magic book, which has no excuse for being in the bag if there's no magic rule on their trip. Why are their roles reversed here? He says to create for them a magical purse, and a building vanishes, and somehow he didn't know a purse was spelled, and they're surprised at the outcome of the spell. So the tower gets turned into a boy. The spell wouldn't have done anything. If you need to say all of the magic words, and you didn't say all of them, there's no excuse for it happening. She would have just summoned a purse. And somehow they warp home with the boy who somehow has his arms above him when he won't always do that. I guess he just has a French accent because he was zapped up from a French tower. Why would the spell not just have him speak French? Why the hell didn't these idiots instantly turn him back into the tower? These idiots can summon anything, and his accent is impossible to understand sometimes. Especially with my typing despite the volume being as loud as I can stand. The story has the goal to constantly torture me for way too long with this forced stupid dialogue with an accent. Although I do eventually get used to it. I at least like that he's glad that birds are flying away from him because he remembers all the time the pigeons humiliated him. How is this supposed to teach us a good lesson? We should have seen her aunts explain to her why they're buying souvenirs instead of summoning them. Because it's the right thing to do. And then it would be a lot more obvious that Sabrina's doing a bad thing, rather than just being a no magic rule for no reason, which wouldn't make any sense if they were mugged. The story wastes my time being boring until Harvey generously says Eiffel can hang out with him. And Harvey pulls the lever to have a snow machine spray out an ice cube. There's no way these mere kids could make this giant machine. They're 12-year-old idiots. Someone says that a bullshit lie is the only explanation for the tower's disappearance aside from witchcraft, and the two TV people laugh. The kid thinks water would make him rust, and I wonder why these idiots didn't zap up a new Eiffel Tower instantly as a cover-up. He says he wants to just have fun, and he thinks homework in school sounds fun. He doesn't ask what that stuff even is. He must have a full English vocabulary based on the fact that he was summoned by an English speaker. So he'd know what school and homework is. Naturally, because he said earlier that he'd be returned to normal any minute, he ends up running away from Sabrina's house. He makes a joke, and Harvey and his friend laugh with him. Harvey's friend puts his hand on Eiffel's shoulder. I don't like Eiffel's hairstyle. It's just long enough that it looks like he could be a girl. He says he got to blow bubblegum. Somehow Worm blew a raspberry at him. The school bell rings, and Harvey wants to grab the snow machine. And it's too bad it's written that Eiffel kisses the cheeks of Sabrina's friends. I'm glad they aren't rude about it. That's very convenient. Somehow cafeteria food walks. Somehow someone does acrobatics in the hallway. And Eiffel makes an explosion with chemicals. Why is nobody questioning this new kid with no papers or records or relatives to vouch for him? I assume that Sabrina's family did the call. But still, he wouldn't be on the attendance sheet. He says he loved school, and Sabrina says he made it fun, which makes sense because she had left. I like the pink glasses of the girl Jem bitched to. Sabrina plans to show Eiffel the arcade, not that we get to see it. Instead, the story wastes her time. Sabrina says she just wanted a purse because the show won't let her get away with nothing. It should have been explained right away that what she did wrong was not give money to someone who sells purses before summoning a purse. Eiffel wishes he could go sledding, and somehow he just stands there to let Zelda read out a magic book. He doesn't get returned to normal, and predictably somehow fails because he doesn't want to go back. Because this is ripping that off from the 90s comic. Jem was eavesdropping on them for no reason, somehow thinking that she needed a stethoscope for that, and somehow no one heard her talk. Somehow Eiffel talks as if one of the other monuments was always jealous of his tensile strength when they didn't have sentience. But yeah, about him not being back to normal. I assume the Witches' Council made this a thing to be merciful to any sentient beings created from any inanimate objects. Why would it just be monuments? The idea that as long as a sentient being made from nowhere has the will to live, it's impossible to use magic to return him to what he used to be. What's contradicted in the episode where Zelda created Romeo, but it can be believable that the head witch is the only one who's allowed to do this kind of thing. Apparently these witches are thinking that just using any old spell to kill him and then return him to normal is crossing the line. Eiffel does a motivational speech to Harvey eventually about the Eiffel Tower. He asks them if they're really going to deprive the world of another tower. This is so cheesy. They could have easily not needed extra motivation. At least Sabrina's helping unnecessarily in an unimpressive way by handing Harvey things. Harvey kicks the machine and they run away as it starts moving unrealistically. At least the kick didn't fix it. That'd have been stupid. Finally, I'm interested in what Jem's gonna say, though she sadly doesn't instantly skip to confronting Sabrina with the truth about Eiffel. Why does she think Pi is a cyborg from the future? Why does the writer think she's crazy now? Why doesn't she realize that nobody would believe her? She hits the machine and somehow makes it eventually spray her with snow. At least she made herself useful. It was condescending to waste time with her confronting her in front of her friends when it was obvious she wouldn't be a real threat if that's all she was gonna do. Why did she even go to Sabrina's house if she wasn't planning on recording embarrassing things that she was doing? People cheer for Eiffel when Harvey gives him the credit for the snow, even though Jem caused the snow. But sure, she doesn't deserve good treatment anyways. Sabrina and Eiffel go sledding. At least it's always been cheerful and desperate to seek out a wide variety of fun things. Because that makes him likable. I just wish it was easy to understand. The same logic for why he speaks English and not French also means he shouldn't have an accent. Sabrina hugs him, and somehow he decides that he wants to go back to normal. Him deciding this would have made sense if he said this right after he said, "Are you gonna deprive the world of another tower?" Instead of making that huge speech, he should have simply explained that he thinks he's experienced every fun thing a kid could experience due to his limited knowledge and memories. Sabrina somehow smiles while saying she'll miss him as he's in a snow globe in her room, and I wonder why he's there and not back in Paris. I guess he is back in Paris, but Sabrina said that to the snow globe like it was him for no reason. At least it's easy to assume Zelda erased Jem's memory of witchcraft. But this would never be done forgotten about in the sitcom. This makes it seem like it'd be harmless if Jem found out about magic. Because she'd keep making a fool out of herself and she'd give up. And it'd be more believable if the person who always used the magical artifacts for Spooky was Jem, because she doesn't have her own magic. This episode was forced to happen because obviously if Sabrina wanted a purse, she'd just summon one effortlessly. Not just a book full of cursed spells, and Salem would have known that the word was person and not purse. And somehow the Eiffel Tower isn't magically replaced instantly to force some pointless tension where people nag him to let them destroy sentience. So I end up feeling bad for him because he just wants to experience as much fun as possible in the time he has left. Too bad it's too hard to understand. But if that's the only constant problem with the episode, it's a relatively good episode for the show, showing creativity with all the different activities he enjoyed. He still sounded annoying, and it still demonized magic because it was the cause of the stress of some people. What is the moral of the story supposed to be? Hopefully it's just that it was wrong for Sabrina to try zapping up a purse just because it was breaking a rule her aunt arbitrarily established that had no excuse for still being carried out with no mortals looking at her. So it's follow the rules of your parents even if the context makes that stupid. The lesson should have been taught with a different rule. That's the only intentional lesson, but the intentional lesson is only really mentioned once. The hopefully unintentional lesson that's repeated throughout the episode from the aunt's nagging is that if morons keep peer pressuring you to do something you don't want to do, even if it's let them kill you, it's wrong not to humor them.